Alrighty, welcome back. We're going to be looking at the buttons for our quote generator today. And the very first thing we're going to do is work on our button container. We're going to start by adding the same margin top that we had between our quote text and our author text, 15 pixels. We will use Flexbox to put one button in this corner and one button in this corner. All right, let's jump back to the code. Okay, so we're going to work above our media query here, and we're going to start out with our button dash container class, and we're going to give it a margin top of 15 pixels, then a display flex to initiate Flexbox, and then justify content, and we want to space between. Okay, so let's save that and check that out. Okay, perfect. So we have our space here, there's a bit of a gap, and we have our buttons on either side. Awesome. Let's get back to actually styling the buttons themselves. So we're just going to target the button element because we don't have any kind of major differences between the buttons other than the hover color, which we're going to specify later. First, for every button, we're actually going to add a cursor pointer because by default, it doesn't have that little pointer when you hover over a button, so we're going to have to add that ourselves. Next, we're going to use rem still for our font size. And we're actually going to use it for the rest of this as well, so that if the font size does change, everything around it will change as well. So the height of our button is going to be 2.5 rem. We don't want to have a border around our button. We want our button to be rounded like everything else, so we're going to give it a 10 pixel border radius. We want the font color to be white. And the background color will be a dark gray, so I'm going to use 333 for that. We don't want a blue outline when we click on it, so we're going to do outline none. And we're going to want some padding. I'm going to use 0.5 rem on the top and bottom, and 1.8 rem on the left and right. Lastly, I'm going to add box shadow. This time it's going to be a little bit different because I'm going to only put in a horizontal and vertical value. So horizontal is 0 and vertical is 0.3 rem. And we're going to give it an RGB of 121, 121, 121 for a kind of a light gray. And we're going to give it a little bit of opacity, but we'll still mostly be able to see it. So the reason that I'm doing this is so that you can see that's how our buttons look. We're going to add a transition so that when we click on the button, it looks like the button is actually being pressed in. Actually, before we get to that, I want to quickly add a hover pseudo class so that when the user hovers over the button, there's a slight color change. So let's jump back and take care of that. Right below here, we're going to use the pseudo class hover by adding a colon, and then hover, we want that to all be one word. And a very easy way to do this is with filter brightness, and we're going to make it 110% brighter. There are definitely better ways to do this, but I found that this is the quickest, easiest way to accomplish this. So let's save it and go back, and you can see it's very subtle, but when we slide over the button, it gets a little bit brighter. Okay, now let's add the effect of actually pressing in the button. Okay, so below that, we're going to use the pseudo class active this time. And we're going to have a transform, translate, and then 0 and 0.3 rem. So you might recognize that 0.3 rem is the same we have up here. So essentially what we're doing is, on the horizontal axis, we're not moving the button, but on the vertical axis, we're moving the button down by 0.3 rem, meaning that it will go into the page. The other thing we're going to manipulate is the box shadow to give slightly less box shadow in order to, again, help with that effect. So we're going to use an RGBA of white, 255 3 times, and then 0.65 again as well. Forgot a semicolon there. All right, and let's save that and check it out. Okay, that looks awesome. Looks like the button is syncing right into the page, so you can see that our box shadow is disappearing, and the whole button is also moving down. Perfect. All right, so last thing, we want to just modify our Twitter button a little bit. We want this icon to glow Twitter blue when we hover over the button, And you know what? We also can stand to make the icon a little bit bigger. By default, it's 1 rem. Let's make it 1.5. All right, back to the code. And we're going to target our Twitter dash button, again with the pseudo class hover. And I already have found this color. You can look it up, of course, if you like. This is the official Twitter color. It's hashtag 38A1F3. Okay, awesome. And while we're at it, let's just add in our size change for our Twitter icon here. Font size 1.5 rem. Okay, let's save that and check it out. All right, so our icon is definitely a little bit bigger, and when we hover over it, it is Twitter blue. All right, so that's pretty much it for our UI. Our styling is done. I think it looks great, and in the next one, we'll start getting to the JavaScript. I'll see you in that one. Bye for now.